All right, guys, let me do a market update before the trading week. I'm going to go over just the market internals, Tesla, and crypto, and just kind of explain what I think I see coming into the week. So last week was pretty crazy. We had a major sell-off going into the end of the week, especially in mega caps. My other video, I warned about this, saying that, Nvidia, AMD, all of these were looking like they were about to fall off a cliff. Ending up, AMD was down 5%, Amazon 2.5%, Meta 4%, Nvidia dropped 10%, and Netflix was down 9%, completely falling off a cliff, right? And I had that thesis about me being really concerned about a possible market crash, or it's possible that I can see a little bit of slither of hope for a bullish thesis, and we needed to maintain certain levels in order for that to play out. And even though Friday was crazy and there was a massive sell-off in the QQQ, it was negative 2%, something to note was the healthiness of rotation that happened, even though mega caps were down significantly. Miners, a lot of crypto was all green. Some other things were green. And what that showed me or made me believe is it was some type of healthy rotation. What they're doing right now is they're liquidating the mega caps, taking some of that money out, and hopefully now it's going to finally go into the rest of the market. And even though QQQ was down significantly, IWM, the Russell closed green, and I think that is a big sign. Now, Thursday night, Israel attacked Iran and ended up being very minuscule. And initially, the markets dropped 2%, and after hours, crypto dropped a significant amount. Like they were down like 5-10%. And within that time frame, though, they all gapped back up. This is the daily candle of Bitcoin when that happened. And what we can do is we can just go look at it really quick. And what happened was, major drop off, then within 2 hours, and then completely reversed in a 1 hour candle, right? Double bottoming, still respecting my main level for the Bitcoin thesis. And from there, we literally just completely went red to green. At one point, it was negative 6%. And by Friday's close, we were green. Miners were up. It was healthy. It looked good. It looked strong. And if you look, now we have the ADL line breaking out on all of the crypto. This is extremely strong. Sol now has more accumulated shares than when it was at 200. So, even though I had that major bias and concern about the major crash, what we seen Friday gave me a lot of comfort with the bullish thesis. Okay. And what I want to do is just go ahead and kind of go over the market internals and go from there. So, major sell off. Something I didn't like is the ADL line. We broke that pivot low. And we're about this area. And I think what would most likely happen is SPY would make its way down into this demand area on the ADL line at some point next week, maybe. So I think that might be possible. And that's just the ADL line. Then for the RSI, we're hitting oversold territory where around the 30 RSI, there's always some type of recovery. Okay. So that's the ADL line and the RSI. Now let's look at the chart. Now I warned that, there's two theses here. I'm going to delete this. And one is we have to find a base in this demand zone around 390 to 395. And if we do not, and we give that up, I think ultimately that we're going to go down to this 50% fibs retracement, which would actually rationalize the red path. Now, personally, if you look at the MACD, the last time we went red, we had a dead cat bounce. It went red here, and we rallied for 2 weeks, and we made lower lows. And I think that actually might be what happens here, because ultimately, what I believe is going to happen is I think we're actually going to probably go to that 470 area. But before that, I think we're going to rally next week or this week. and maybe next week. And what would happen at this point is if we rally for a week or two and then we make lower lows, that would fit my thesis of a bottom in May or June, and then we rally for a couple months. And if we find ourselves in this 50% Fibs retracement in a 467 area, you know, fitting the thesis for a larger wave five, that would really fit the narrative for a major rally going into like June, July, August, which could be really strong, especially if we do have some sustainability over this next few weeks where there's good rotations too. Okay. So even if we ultimately are going to this 50% fibs down around 467, I think we are at the minimum going to find a bounce here regardless. And I think we're going to bounce and we're either going to find something in this support level or probably maybe in this support area, which there's one right here, but let me just do this one. So I think it's very possible that, we kind of either base, which is what I have this little crescent out, because there's a bottom. It's usually not a knife, like a V-shaped reversal. If it is, that's probably going to make me more confident that we're going down here. But there should be a few days of sideways consolidation, and then we make an attempt at recovering. And I think we'll run into this supply, around 500 to 507, or we might even make it up to like 512, 516. And then if we were to do that, now it is possible that this is the bottom and we go for a wave five, right? That is possible. I'm not going to throw it away, especially if Tesla and Apple lead the way with mega caps. But, for now, I think we will have a rally this week, especially with Israel and Iran conflict not happening over the weekend. And I think crypto is probably going to rally at some point, and then probably pull back maybe for this thesis. But if we start seeing really good market breadth and we get past this 516 area, then I may say that it's possible that we're going for this wave five, right? But regardless, I do think we'll bottom here, and I'll show you the other internals too. So same thing with QQQ. Now what I see here with QQQ is we broke this pivot low, but we literally knife dropped with such a strong sell and ran into this pivot low, which makes me believe that I think tomorrow, Monday, I think we're going to bounce somewhere. And we should at least try to find a bounce here. Otherwise, we break through this and go to either this pivot high or this pivot low. And since we're so oversold within just a few trading days, I think there's going to be a bounce here for sure. So that's on the ADL line. On the RSI, extremely oversold conditions. We're down 29. And anytime that you look at this area, when we get oversold, there's a bounce. Let's say here in this area was a bounce, right? Which it went lower, but here was a bounce over here. Here was a bounce. This is more so what I would look for, right? Where we're in a wave four and now we're going to finish a wave five. I think that's very possible what we do here, right? And that's what we need to keep our eyes on. But let's go ahead and look at the technicals now. Now, there is the thesis here where it's like for this wave four, for this being a pivot low, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we can't really get under this like 412, 410 area. If we do, then this wave four is invalid, right? And it's more likely that we're going to go down to this 396 area, which I think I would be very surprised if this is a wave five. I think we're going to get an ABC correction, and then sometime in May or June, we're going to hit this bottom over here. But I'm not opposed to either one of these. Regardless, I think we are going to get a bounce here. That's the most important thing. And the reason I'm kind of have that bias is you can see here that this 200-day moving average on the daily was supported, which would fit into this narrative of this being the 50% retracement, for this being a wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And if I go on the weekly, the bullish trend cloud is also there. So I could really see this being like an A, B, C. Let's do that on the daily just so it's easier for you to see. But I could really see it being like, an A, B, C type move, right? But regardless, I do think we're going to see a rally here. So There's two bull theses for both SPY and QQQ. We're at one right now for this 50% retracement, right? We see a rally here, and I think we are going to see a rally here, especially with the no conflict over the weekend and how Friday acted. And even with this rally, ultimately what we'll probably do is we'll probably trim once we find supply. There's a little bit of supply right there. There's really big supply right here, right? And then we'll trim and just kind of see what the structure gives us. Because ultimately, if we get up here, I think this next wave will cause a major sell-off. And if it does, it'll be strong and it'll be ugly. But if we get in these areas, that's going to be the dip buy of an opportunity for sure. The top six is the same thing. You know, this chart represents these stocks, and it's a chart created just out of the top six. And what we have here is we have a flawless drop, right? For this being wave 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 5. So where are we bouncing? We hit it perfectly, and we got a little bit of a bottom wick right there. You see that? It's also daily demand. Now, there's another thesis where, you know, it's down here, where this is a 1, 2, rather than this being an extended wave. So if this is just a 1, 2, larger wave 3, larger wave 4, larger wave 5. Or is this a wave 1, 2, and this is a 3 wave? This is wave 3, and within wave 3, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the thing that we need to see here. And this Fibs retracement right here is what's going to let us know. If we start giving up, you know, the 1770 area, then this isn't a wave 4 of wave 3. This is the larger degree wave 4. That's what I'm going to believe. But regardless, if you look, all three of them are at the 50% Fibs. That's synchrony. That is accumulative data saying that we're at a base. I really think we are at a base. What about the ADL line? Kind of an SR flip, right? Now, we're around this area where there's a little bit of demand here. We're in it now. Not saying that we couldn't go lower. I think we could go lower, you know, but ultimately I think we will have a bottom this week and we will see a strong rally. I'm really believing that it might be through Tesla. Now I'm going to cover Tesla really quick just because it's one of our major trade ideas. You know, I did a 22-minute video over the weekend about how bullish I am about thinking that this happens. And if we look at the charts, you know, I see a lot of ugliness set up for a lot of these charts. If you actually look at NVIDIA, you know, I think we're probably going to come down to this pivot low and then bottom, right? And if we come down to this pivot low, where would NVIDIA take NVIDIA? It's very possible that if this is wave 1, 2, right, then this is wave 3, 4, it could take us down to about 681, right? Now, NVIDIA's been strong and stayed strong for a very long time. But if you look at this Fibs extension for this correction, the 161 also lands into the 50% Fibs. So I would not be surprised if like tomorrow it's a gap down because it closed near low day. And then there's like one more day of a sell-off. And then it hits this 50% Fib going into earnings. And then it rallies like a motherfucker. And let me go ahead and just do the Elliott wave theory. So what that chart is currently saying is it's a probability that this is what happens, right? So if this is wave 2, and this is wave 3, right? Pivot low to pivot high for the Fibs retracement. Wave 4 cannot extend past 50% Fib. What does 50% Fib offer us? There is an accumulative of technicals, a confluence of technicals, the 100-day moving average, right? Daily demand after a gap down, after extremely oversold conditions, right? Like where's the RSI? If we have that and it drops down another 6%, it'll be in oversold territory. We'll probably be around 30, right? If we're around 30, falling into 50% Fib, right? 50% Fib, daily demand, 100-day moving average, and then the 161 of this measured move for an ABC correction. That's 3 technicals of confluence on the chart. RSI confluence, ADL line confluence, right? To me, I think that's a very high probability of a bottom here. in this 660 to 690 range, in which, I mean, if you want to take it as a personal trade, be my guest, but the options contracts are usually thousands of dollars for that one. So it's pretty rough. But if that's supposed to drop like that, and you have Netflix looking terrible, right? But it's also falling into a demand area, right? But regardless, they all look like they're in a corrective phase, right? And if they're all in a corrective phase, right, and we're supposed to go lower going into May or June, and all of these mega caps are going to bring the market down, there's usually, there's usually half the mega caps that carry the market and do it the inverse of what's been happening. So for the last few months, which mega caps have been carrying the market? Nvidia, Netflix, Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, AMD, Apple, not Apple, but all of those have been carrying it. And then Apple and Tesla have been the redhead stepchild getting abused, right? I think it's very probable that, during the sell pressure, there's a little bit of a rally, but then, these mega caps that sold off last week continue pressuring the market down while Apple and Tesla do the inverse, especially Tesla. I covered this. I really do think that we probably bottom this week. I'm going to look to add this week if we dip at all, you know. And I even, based on these measurements, I think it might even be like a 138 area. And I want to say that number just in case it actually comes to fruition, because that would be nuts if that kind of accuracy comes to fruition. So, based on these market internals, what about Bitcoin? What's happening with Bitcoin? ADL lines at an all-time high. What's happening with the MACD? I say that usually after we break above the zero line, we go down and we backtest and we curl back up. Right now, the MACD is starting to curl. That's bullish, and especially if we can get across, right? What happened with the RSI? I said in this area, it's most likely going to bounce because it bounces a lot here, right? What happened? We got the bounce, right? 2 times so far, my main level has been being tested, right? This A, B, C, D, E correction. Now, let me actually go ahead and update this. I've been sitting on this for a while because I wanted the chart to develop. But A, B, C, D, E corrections, I'm not entirely convinced that this is actually a B, C, D, E at this point. I think it might. Now, I'm not going to, regardless, I think we go up from here as long as we get in this level. But I think what actually might be getting developed is this is a larger B wave. This is a larger C wave. And now we're going to go up and you see this little supply zone right here. I think this week we rally up into the supply zone and it gets a lot of people excited. But then we have one more leg down, maybe going into May, right? Probably in this demand zone, because right now this is creating a demand zone right here. Right? This is a demand zone right there. That got created 2 days ago. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is what happens. We get a little bit of a rally this week, a little bit of a cool down, one more higher low, and then we go off to the races. Right? So I'm going to leave this here. Now I'm not going to count this out as we rally from here either, because even if we get, we rally up to here and we back test, make a higher low, that's still the same concept essentially, right? But this is really starting to look like what the ABCDE structure would look like. But regardless, as long as we defend this, I think we go higher. Now, it's possible we could just do an ABC correction like this. I'm not going to take this out of the question either. It could be one of these, and then we sell off to the 100 area, the 50% fib and the 100-day moving average. We can do that too. The big line in the sand is this 56K area, right? We can't really get under this too much. If we start pulling away, then that validates Bitcoin as a whole. And it likely means we're going to this area, but even though if we go to this area, we're probably going lower than that. But I have 3 scenarios here and 2 of them are bullish, right? And the only way this goes bearish is if we get under this 56K, which I don't think is going to happen. I think it's one of these, because if we were going to get down there, I would have thought they would have already did it right here. And that's 2 defenses, right? Now, you got to see this cloud. You see how it's starting to ride down it? It's getting defended right now. So we got to be mindful of that. But so far, the market internals, SPY, QQQ, Tesla, Bitcoin, Apple, all of these that I said were the line in the sand technicals, the market internals, they all did really well and did what they needed to do Friday, which gives us hope, right? Then if we look at the miners, they did phenomenal, to be honest. You know, the thing is, I'm going to mention two things. One is we had a bear shift in structure. That is a lower low than this pivot low from January. So when that happens, that ultimately says rallies get sold. Now the thing is, I have this ABC correction right here, and it could be like that, but it could be a shallow wave C to where this is wave three still. And I mentioned that as a warning, like they could do some fuckery like that where they just barely trip the low to invalidate this and and make it hard to believe in the bull thesis because of that tripped low and then rally from here. And it'll suck if it happens, but if we start getting too far up here and the structure shifts, like this is a pivot high, right? So if we break this pivot high, then we need a higher low. And as long as we defend that, then that's bullish. Now this is a micro pivot high we broke above. So what I mentioned in the trade idea of this is I wouldn't be surprised if we rally up into this supply zone and then we sell off, right? So what I'm going to look for this week is all the crypto miners created a demand zone at the bottom, right? So this is a strong low and we do not want to see this broke. So now that we have a base here and we have a demand zone here, I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of come up here, back test, make a higher low, and then go for a higher high. And then back test the supply zone after we break out and then go higher. So for that reason being, what I'm going to do is, oh, that's bullish by the way. What I'm going to do is, if we go into the supply zone, I'm going to probably trim a little bit, and then I'm going to look to add back here in the miners. Because if we trim here this week and it pulls back, that's a 12% dip. That's worth buying because 12% down just to go back up to where we sold should be about 14, 15%, 13.5%, a little bit more. But either way, I think that's good. Now, if we trim here and we base over this and we back test, then we'll just buy it back, right? But overall, that's a really bullish sequence that we wanted to see in miners. You know, this is also bullish. We have a little bit of a demand zone here. We curled, hit, rallied. And then here's something bearish to look at. I said it's very probable we run into the supply and then we go down, right? That would actually fit the narrative of us breaking below this ascending RSI support, hitting it, and then rejecting. I can see that happening. And also, the reason I'm not too extremely confident is because I do think we ultimately are probably having a larger degree ABC correction, which we bottom somewhere in May or June. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of high volatility fuckery that happens in that time. I'd be very impressed if we just start pulling away right now. But we will trade it and we will try our hardest to get it if so. But I'm more inclined to believe that there's some kind of like 25% range. Some area here where there's just a lot of sideways development and it builds a base while the market becomes unstable. And then when the index is finally stabilized, then we rally. Now, I did say in the last video, and I'll say it again, that it's possible that crypto diverges from equities. So maybe miners and crypto rally while equities fuck off. So we also got to keep that in mind. But something else to note that was bullish is, the biggest thing that even though we tripped this pivot low is, the daily close under 1450. We never even did that. We closed like at 1460. So those are bottom wick rejections. That's a bullish occurrence, right? So we need to keep that in mind. So the idea here is, as long as we hold this demand zone, right, any type of back test to this area should be met with buying. But if we break below this, then we take this directional arrow, right? Which now this is a strong stop loss. If we break below 1418, 1418, like we might as well just get triggered stop loss because it's probably going to play out to the lower monthly demand zone. But if you look at the weekly candle, look how beautiful that is. That's literally what you want to see. nice bullish hammer candle, the volume preceding these two volume bars, right? These are wide body engulfing. This one had more volume come in, right? And it's bullish. That's exactly what we want to see for the bullish narrative, right? Same thing with Riot. Look at that hammer candle, right? Same thing with CLSK. Look at that. It's bullish, right? Look at CLSK. Same thing's happening here. Now we have a demand zone right here. So any type of dip into this area, we can look to buy as long as it holds that low. You know, we defended the 50% fib with the bottom of the candle, high volume picking up, right? Same thing with Riot. It oversold a lot. It tripped this low, which that's concerning. It really is. But I'm very, until we start breaking above this pivot, and especially this one, right? That's a bear shift in structure in the larger time frame. Until we truly get above this $13 area, this is still a bearish chart. So even though we could rally, there's a rally probability of even 40% before the chart even becomes bullish, like truly bullish. But we can try to trade it for now. There's this overhead supply. It would kind of align with the other ones meeting resistance, and then some type of back test of this demand zone. And that's what I'm going to look for this week. If we get up into this 960 to $10 area, maybe 1050 area, maybe trim some, and then look to see if this demand zone gets defended and going into May. All of this was a bullish sequence, which is exactly what we needed to see Friday, even though the market was having a meltdown. Even though the mega caps were having a meltdown, all of that is bullish, right? What else do we got? HSI, look at that. That's nice. So this is the Chinese index having a gap up, strong movement. It looks like the Hong Kong BABA is rallying really strongly. Look at that. Ooh, look at that. Coming out of demand, up 3%. That's very nice. It's going to be a gap up on BABA. This is something that I've been paying attention to. We finally broke this downtrend of the ADL buildup on BABA. Then this SR flip, we're breaking above it, which is what it looks like it's saying. We really need to get past this downtrend on that one. HSI, this is it right here, guys. This is the secret sauce with Hong Kong, with China stocks. If we can break out of this descending resistance that has been descending since January 2023, right? Since the top of this, if we can break out of this, and we can break out of this descending resistance, which is from February of 2021, we're almost there. If we break out of this, China rallies, right? So we need to keep an eye on that. I wonder if there's anything else. Overall, I really like what I seen Friday for the bullish thesis, in the broader market. I really like what I see with the mega caps, right? Especially if we can get a little bit of a rally here and we can get some good market breadth going on. I really like what I saw with IWM. IWM ended up going green. This is a gap down and a rally. That's bullish. What's happening here? This looks like, if we look at this line exactly specifically, this looks like a very honest line in the sand for uptrend and downtrend, right? Once it gave it up, it kept going down. So if we can defend this area, I can think that we can see a higher high, right? And if we look at the future of IWM, right, do we see anything bullish here, right? If this is a Fibs retracement, it bounced off the 61%. Like, some of this stuff actually works. It's kind of impressive. But looks like it bounced off the 61% retracement. That's a really strong rally from there. And I guess you could call this a lot of consolidation, right? This is a massive demand zone. I think if the ADL line started getting under this, obviously that'd be really bearish. But overall, if you look at it, that's an extremely bullish candle on a very high volume. Look at that. That's the highest volume bar since March 2023. That is the highest volume bar in small and mid cap in a year. That's extremely bullish. I just caught that. Extremely bullish. And that also happened in this demand zone, right? Off the 200-day moving average, which is the true trend indicator. If it needed to bounce somewhere, it needed to bounce there, right? I told you in the last video that, even though these major corrections happen, 25% of the time in the last 100 years, small and mid cap actually rally, even though SPY and QQQ actually correct harshly. Now, I've not seen that since I've been a trader, but man, would that be amazing for all of us if that's what happens, right? Um, Ethereum, as long as it holds this 2800 area, that's extremely bullish. That's the 50% fib, right? Let's go ahead and make that white so it's a little bit easier since I use it everywhere else. From this pivot low to this pivot high, right? You see the yellow path? This is what I'm looking at. Wave 1, 2, wave 3, wave 4, and this is wave 5. And if this is wave 5, and that's the bottom, we can look at wave 5 going to, let's actually bring that up. Wave 5 minimum should be about 4,800, but it could go up to the 261, right? This is where wave 5 could take us for Ethereum. And from this bottom, just for the beginning, that's 71% move, right? Starting to break out. Sol, doing phenomenal. Litecoin, everything's building structure. This is a lot of structure building demand, right? Let's see. Right there, 4-day demand. So Litecoin built a 4-day demand zone right there. So what this says is 4-day demand, and then we break out of the demand. So what should happen here is it should be defended. Now we should see some kind of move and then a back test, a higher low, and then a higher high, right? And if you wanted to enter, the way to trade it is by waiting for it to make a higher low and then a higher high, and then you buy this back test. Or you can just buy this demand if you feel really confident, right? But that's a 3-day, 4-day demand zone that was created right there. So, and then everything's doing that pretty much. They all based, and now they're creating a demand zone. Algo's creating a 2-day demand zone within this weekly demand zone, right? So USD, there's demand right there, a demand zone candle. It's probably like a 3-day or 4-day. Right there, 2-day demand. Right. So realistically, I seen exactly what I needed to see Friday. That makes me feel very comfortable. The main thing I want to focus on this week is Tesla, because I'm going to position in this very, very largely. This is a very good trade idea if this is the true bottom of Tesla. If Tesla's at the bottom, then Tesla's going to lead the mega caps in the next rally. And if that's going to be the case, then I'm going to be diversified. I'm going to be in one mega cap, and that's going to be Tesla. If Tesla's going to do the rally, then I want to be in it, right? So, quick update. Hopefully, I didn't forget anything. I did miners, Tesla. I think Apple is going to be one of the ones too. It's all lining up. Just if you watch the Tesla video, the Tesla trade idea video, and you'll get a really good idea of the other sequences of bottoms that I think is happening, right? Other than that, I really like what I saw. I want to see follow through today, this week, right? And miners, crypto look really good. Tesla looks really good. China's doing exactly what I want to see. We really need to see weed do something this week, right? A lot of ugliness, man. This is an extreme sell-off. But so what, really quick with Tilray is, this is wave 1 of my belief, right? And if we break under 150 area, this invalidates this completely. If we break under 150, it's also a psych level. If we break under 150, then there is no bull thesis anymore, and I'll just have to close the trade. But there's also this being wave one, wave two, and there's another bull thesis here that this is going to be wave three of three. 1, 2, 3. So as long as we can hold this 160, this could be wave three of three. If this is wave three of three, we're going to go up just as quickly as we went down. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to hodl this because I believe in lead no matter what the fuckery is happening, right? CGC bouncing off here and curling up. I actually took a position here. My private account's already at 38%. What else is there? Yeah, that's it. All right, cheers.